There is a strange mistake people make when they want something badly. They keep reminding themselves that they don't have it. They say, I want love, I want money, I want that life, I want to become successful, and every time they say it, there is something hidden underneath those words: I don't have it yet. That feeling of not having becomes the reality they keep rehearsing. But what if you stopped practicing the feeling of wanting? What if, for a moment, you stopped asking, when is it coming? And instead, you began to experience what it would feel like if it were already yours? Not pretending, not forcing yourself to believe something you don't believe, but quietly changing the position from which you experience your life. Because there is a huge difference between wanting something and feeling like you already have it. When you want something, your attention naturally goes toward its absence. You check, you wait. You look for signs, you wonder whether it's working, you compare your current life with the life you want. And underneath all of that is tension, but when something already belongs to you, you don't constantly ask whether you're going to receive it, you simply live. Think about something you already own. You don't wake up every morning thinking, I hope my phone is still mine. You don't spend the entire day checking whether you still have permission to possess it. There's no desperation. There's no begging. There's just a quiet sense of this is mine. That's the state you want to understand. The feeling isn't necessarily excitement. It isn't walking around all day pretending you're rich, loved, successful, or powerful. Sometimes the feeling of having what you desire is surprisingly ordinary. It's normal. And that's the part most people miss. They imagine that once they get what they want, they'll feel an enormous emotional explosion every day. But real possession often becomes natural. If you had the relationship you wanted, eventually you'd stop thinking, I finally have someone. You'd simply think about your day, you'd make breakfast, you'd send a message. You'd laugh together, you'd make plans. It would become normal. If you had the money you wanted, eventually you wouldn't stare at your bank account every 5 minutes in disbelief. You'd simply make decisions from the assumption that you're financially secure. You wouldn't constantly ask, where is the money? You'd think, what am I doing with it? That is the shift. From waiting to experiencing. So here's something you can practice. Close your eyes. Forget about the entire journey, forget how long it will take. Forget who needs to change, forget the circumstances. And ask yourself, if this were already done, how would I feel right now? Don't rush to answer, sit with it. Maybe the answer is relief, maybe it's peace, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's security, maybe it's the feeling of finally being able to breathe. And here's the important part, don't try to create a huge emotional high. Find the quietest version of the feeling. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing it's handled. Imagine looking at your life and not needing anything to prove that you're okay. Imagine the desire becoming so normal that you barely think about it. That's the state, and you can practice entering it before the physical evidence appears. Because your mind doesn't only respond to what is physically happening. It responds to what you repeatedly experience internally. If every day you rehearse rejection, you're training yourself to expect rejection. If every day you rehearse scarcity, you're training yourself to notice scarcity. If every day you rehearse being unwanted, you'll interpret situations through that identity, so change the rehearsal. Instead of asking, why don't I have it? Ask, how would I think if I already did? Instead of, when will they choose me? Try, how would I carry myself if I already felt chosen? Instead of, how do I become successful? Ask, how would I move through today if success were already normal for me? You don't have to fake anything. You simply begin practicing the identity of the person for whom the desire is no longer a question. And this changes something subtle. You stop chasing, you stop checking, you stop begging reality for confirmation. You become less obsessed with when and more connected to who you are now. Of course, this doesn't mean you sit on your bed and refuse to take action. You still work, you still make decisions, you still send the message, you still build the business, you still improve yourself. But your actions come from a different place, not, I need to do this so I can finally become enough, but, this is what the person I already believe myself to be naturally does. That's a completely different energy. So tonight, before you sleep, don't spend 10 minutes begging for your desire. Don't visualize yourself desperately reaching for it. Instead, imagine that you opened your eyes tomorrow and discovered there was nothing left to chase. It's done, it's yours, and ask, what would feel normal now? Maybe you'd breathe differently, maybe you'd stop checking your phone, maybe you'd walk differently, maybe you'd feel lighter, maybe you'd finally stop trying to convince everyone, including yourself, that you're worthy. Stay there. Not in fantasy but in familiarity, because the goal isn't to become obsessed with getting what you want. The goal is to become so familiar with having it that your mind stops treating it like something impossible, and when you stop constantly experiencing yourself as the person who is waiting, you begin experiencing yourself as the person who already has. Feel it before you see it, not because you are escaping reality, but because every reality you live begins with the way you relate to yourself.